Today on Cooking for Real, it's experiment time. I'm going to take this ramen and make it into something a little bit better. I'm not going to use the flavor packet that comes along with it. Instead, I'm going to use my own homemade chicken broth and a lot of vegetables, and I'm going to float some beautifully poached eggs on top. It's an experiment. Come along with me. First things first, we're going to cube up some chicken and fry it off. Not fry. We're not going to fry it. We're going to cook it off. Off camera, what I did was I prepared the chicken. I cubed it up. I cut off, fat and connective tissue. I made it pretty small. I'm going to show you a piece right here. Here's my hand for comparison. But I then put salt, pepper, and Bell's seasoning on it. Not a lot, just enough. You'll see it here. And I got this pan preheated, and we're going to brown this off. Now I want you to see that in this pan here, I actually have my broth going. I'm going to move this camera over so you can see. So this is my homemade broth. You can see it's still a little frozen. I have it on a nice low temperature in order to defrost it nicely. So now that we're slightly browned, I've decided to go ahead and add some distinctly Asian flavors to this chicken. This is actually probably going to be the best time to impart some extra flavor to this. So what I have here is actually about a half teaspoon, maybe less, of sesame oil. And I poured it out first because, boy, if you get too much in there, it's a very invasive flavor. And on top of that, about 1 tablespoon of soy sauce. We're just going to go ahead and throw that right in there. And then I'm going to sprinkle on top of that some ginger. Ooh. That doesn't want to come out. There we go. Some ginger. Some minced garlic. And then on top of that, a few dashes of turmeric. We'll get that stirred all around. I'm starting to see some bubbles in my broth. Look at the beautiful color on this chicken, changing right away between the soy sauce and the turmeric. So now that we have good color on the outside of this chicken, well, you know what? I think we could brown it a little more. Well, it's not as browned as I would like, but we don't want it to overcook because we're going to cook it even more in this broth. So I'm going to pick up this very heavy pan and add this liquid and all right into my now warm broth. And while that cooks a little bit, I'm going to clean up a bit around here and work on mise-en-placing the vegetables that are going into this. So I have discovered that a very easy way of taking edamame out of the pods is to actually cut the pods with a pair of kitchen scissors and then just squeeze each individual bean out. So it's about 20 minutes before we're going to eat, and now I am going to add in, this is corn and green beans that I cut down into smaller bite-sized pieces, and this is the edamame that I took out of the shells. So we want them to get, cooked, and in the case of the green beans, hot. And about 5 minutes before we're supposed to eat, I will actually add in the ramen noodles. Now what I have here is actually just some slowly simmering water, which I'm going to turn down to a little bit lower because we're not quite ready for this. But if you can see, there's just a little steam rolling off at the top of this. That's the only temperature you need to poach eggs. And there's a splash of vinegar in the water. Okay, so it's getting close to dinner time, so we're going to do a couple of things pretty quickly here. First of all, we're going to get rid of that, and then I'm just going to take these noodles and drop them directly into my broth. The only broken noodles that are going in here are the ones that were already broken in the bag, and then submerge them. Okay, let me bring that camera over and I'll show you what I'm talking about. There you are. They are just submerged. Then we're just going to pop this lid right back on. And now that that's going, we are going to work on our eggs. Hang on while I figure out my little tripod here. Now I know you may have poached eggs before and you've vortexed the water. Well, they don't actually recommend that anymore because it spreads the white out around the pan instead of pulling it together like you thought it might. So what I'm going to do here is I have my simmering water with a splash of vinegar in it, and I have a very cold egg in a small ramekin, and I'm just going to ease it into the water. Once this one firms up a tiny little bit, I'm actually going to go ahead and add the second one right into the water. You just want to ease it in. And now, all you really have to do is let it sit for about 4 minutes. So here we are. All I did was pop those noodles in as you saw, and then right just before I turned the camera back on, I moved it around in here, and these noodles are cooked perfectly, and so are these poached eggs. And once again, I've knocked my tripod down. So now let's go ahead and serve this up. We're just gonna put noodles in the bottom of this bowl. I want to make sure we get some of the other goodness in here. I know I have a lot of utensils here. We are going to ladle on this beautiful broth. I'll probably turn the heat off on this ramen. And now with a slotted spoon, remove that beautifully poached egg. And just right on top of this ramen. So here we are about to give this a go. Let's pop that yolk in there. Mix it in. I'm excited. All right, the moment of truth. Delicious. Experiment complete. Ramen and eggs. I knew that this was delicious, otherwise they wouldn't serve it at ramen and poke bowl shops. But I'm glad to see that I could do it on my own. I do recommend taking store-bought things like ramen noodles and experimenting with them. Just because it says this is the way it's done on the package doesn't mean that's the only way it's done. So go ahead and take your ramen noodles and your canned soups and make them into something special. Thank you for watching Cooking for Real today, where I'm not just cooking for real, I'm cooking for you.